Hey everyone, welcome back to Beekeeping with Natalie, or welcome to if you are new. Today we're here with Paul Landsberg. He's a Missouri commercial beekeeper, and we're going to be filming some videos today, and we're going to do some grafting and stuff like that. So you can kind of tell us a little bit about how you got into beekeeping.
So my dad started a business. He actually bought the business from a California beekeeper that had moved to Missouri, and they went to church together, and Dad started working with him, and then Dad ended up buying the operation from him. So when I was 3, my dad basically bought the operation, started running it, and so I grew up in it. And until about 96, somewhere around 96, we ran 600 colonies here in Missouri. And then he got to where he was just doing it as a hobby, and I went off to college to play football and did all that. So for many years, I didn't mess with bees. Fast forward to 2015, he was still just running 50 to 100 hives, just kind of doing it as a hobby, part-time. He actually passed away in a car wreck, and I hadn't messed with bees since I was a senior in high school. So I started messing with them again and realized that this is what I wanted to be doing. So from 15, I walked away from my full-time job in 19 and went full-time beekeeper. So we are currently sitting around 800-900 hives. So we're a good-sized commercial operation, but we're not a real big operation. So, but we're Missouri-based. We send our bees to California for almond pollination. We sell bees and queens, and then do honey production in Missouri. So
I hear you have a little bit of YouTube experience.
a little bit. I used to be in a predator hunting group, and we went around and made predator hunting videos, primarily coyotes. So I've got a little bit of experience, and my face has been on YouTube. So, but the bee business kind of took over, and I kind of had to walk away from that. So, but.
All right, well, I guess we're going to go do some other stuff, and stay tuned for that. Okay, so you can talk a little bit about your Nucs here and how they're in singles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we make all of our splits into single boxes just because it's easier for us. Those hives down there are actually the parent hives to the ones you see here. Typically, we'll make splits and put them on the truck and take them to another yard. The day that I was making these splits, I had some serious back issues going on, and I was hurting, so I just left them here. So they probably are a little weaker because a lot of the bees probably went back, the old field bees went back. So they're probably a little weaker than normal splits that I make. But I haven't looked at them for a month, so we'll see. But we make them into singles just because it's easier for us. And then for our customers for Nucs, we'll go back into singles and pull the nuke out. So it just allows them, it gives them more space to grow. Mm-hmm. Some will grow faster than others, so that way you don't have the spread that you will with doing it in nuke boxes. You always have one that's way stronger than the others. Yeah. So in a single, it's a little bit easier to handle. So, but we'll do them in singles, and then, like I said, normally we take them to another yard, but this time they stayed in this yard because I was hurting and just trying to get the work done, but I had queens I had to get in. So.
And you said these were mated queens?
These were mated queens. So okay. We do still, even though we do graft and raise our own, just because of the timing and the weather in Missouri, and with the bees coming back from California as strong as they are and wanting to swarm, we'll buy some queens from breeders. These are all Minnesota hygienics from the breeder that originally got my stock from. So they're good stock. So. So yeah, so in the early splits, we're kind of forced to buy some queens because we don't have the weather to raise queens. Yeah. So the early splits, we'll buy some. We did put some cells in early too, but we don't get as good a take. So, but
I also noticed you have some cows back there. Does it bother anything?
No, every once in a while the cows will rub up against them or pop a lid. cows will bother them more in the wintertime, in my opinion. I've had worse luck in the wintertime when the bees are dormant, the cows will bother them. Whenever, as you can tell, the grass is growing up around these hives, the cows pretty much kind of stay away from them in the summer because the bees are out a lot more active. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with cows. They don't seem to bother them in the summer. Like I said, in the wintertime, they'll rub up against them. But for the most part, in the winter nowadays, we're pulling them out and putting them in a holding yard, getting them ready to go to California, so I don't have that much trouble. So,
Okay.
Well, anyways, let's go through some of these and see what they look like.
Okay.
So we have all of them set up to where the feeder's on the inside. And I run 9 frames in the feeder. So what I usually do is just pop the feeder out first, and it gives you plenty of room.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're working towards you, so generally the queen will be on the dark side of the frame. I think Bob Benny's talked about that in some of his videos. So
you want me to go through this one?
Yeah, help yourself. I just take the queen cage and, well, I dropped that one down in the hive. So. This queen got accepted. She's laying, this thing's full of eggs and larvae.
So what all did you put in these splits?
These were 3 frames of brood. We shook all the bees, put it over a queen excluder, and then come back a couple days later and pulled them. I say I. So we got all this pollen. We got the brood. So this one is queen right.
Did you say you put it in the feeder?
Yeah, I just throw it down in the feeder so it's not laying in the grass. Lots and lots of pollen, and we got nectar. So. Typically, that's all I look for. So I'm done. It's queen right. They got plenty of space to move. They got some resources in there. I can move on to the next one. And I carry just put QR. So then I know it's queen right.
This one looks good too.
A little bit smaller.
Yeah.
But they're queen right?
Yeah.
Cool. Got
Do you
eggs
deal
and larvae.
with laying workers at all? Is that a problem? If so, how do you?
Typically, you'll find the laying workers will be the ones that aren't queen right when you do your first check back. And sometimes they'll have a virgin in there. They raised a queen or whatever. Sometimes those queens never really pan out. And when you come back around, you'll have a laying worker. What I usually do is I just shake them off in the grass and put them on top of a queen right, and then let the bees go wherever. Okay. So I'll give them time to see if one of those virgins will get mated, but eventually if they don't and they start laying workers, I'll just shake them off in the grass quite a ways away, put the box right on top of a queen right one, and then it's one less second I got to take off the truck. So.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's one that did not make it. Yeah, that happens. Yep. So, it happens.
So now what?
I'll leave it here, and eventually I'll put it on as a second story.
Okay.
But I was worried about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So what's that one look like?
So how do you prevent something like that?
Generally, if you put them, there's another one. If you take them to another yard, you won't have what happened was a lot of the bees went back to the parent colony.
Yeah.
And I figured this was probably going to happen because I did leave them in the same yard. But typically, if you take them to another yard, they don't fly back to the parent. So, but the circumstance that I was in.
Yeah.
So we don't have to check these. We'll just leave them, actually turn the lid upside down so we know that those did not make it. We'll check the next ones. I figure there's going to be a few of them.
Oh, there she is.
Yep, just small. So what I'll
She's
probably,
laying, though.
yeah, this one here's laying too. And see, I don't even have to see the queen. I know they're queen right. Yeah, because like I said, these were made up over 21 days ago. So if there's cat brood, they're obviously queen right. So usually when I'm doing checkbacks, I'm just pulling one frame. So, and if we come across one that's like super, super strong, and I am worried about it, you know, maybe it's too big, I can pull a frame of brood or a couple frames of brood out and boost the ones that are smaller. Is that one queen right?
Yep.
Yeah, 4 for 4. Now see that one there, if it is queen right, we may pull a frame of brood out and put it in that weak one back there just to give them a little boost. We may put it in this one right here. This one looks pretty weak too. So
What's with the wood and the feeder? Is it to keep it?
So these old feeders with that wood are actually feeders that we've had for a long, long time. The new feeders, you have those little plastic tabs that hold them open.
Yeah.
Well, this was the answer that my dad had to keep the feeders from warping closed. Do you hear that roaring?
Yeah.
I bet you this one's not queen right. Nope. Yours is queen, right? It's got this one? No, it's got bees in it. It could have a virgin in it. So let's pull a big fat frame of brood out of this one, like that one you just had.
Yeah.
And we'll shake it off. We'll put it in that weak one behind us.
You want me to put this back in? That
Yeah.
one?
Yep. And that brood there's emerging, so they'll get a little boost on numbers. No, I'll give this one a little more time because it could have a virgin in it. Okay. See, typically that's kind of what the split should look like, especially if you moved them into another yard. You wouldn't have the bees drifting back to the parent colony.
Mm-hmm.
Well, both of those were queen right. They got bees in them. I don't think this one's queen right. Tell by how they're roaring. Nope. Hey, eggs?
Yeah.
Got eggs, that's all that matters. That's usually all I look for is if I can find eggs or I pull a frame of brood out. I haven't been here for 21 days. Then I know it's queen right and I just move on. I don't do a complete hive inspection.
Yeah.
I may move frames of brood around to equalize and strengthen the ones that are a little weaker if I come across one that's really, really strong. But typically, I'm just pull a frame. Yep, it's queen right on there, and move on. There's your marker.
So where are these going?
These will stay here a little bit longer, and then they may stay here permanently, and I may move the parent hives out to honey yards and then just let these grow. Mm-hmm. It'll kind of depend.
Okay.
Haven't got to that point yet, so haven't made up my mind.
Yeah.
Yep. So the reason why we put the feeders on the inside is so when we come back and if we want to feed them, basically all we have to do is slide the lid that far open and we can fill the feeder up with our nozzle without opening the whole lid of the hive. This time of year it's not that big of a deal, but in the fall, whenever they get robby. That's really handy just to slide the lid back, fill the feeder,
Yeah.
close the lid, reduces robbing quite a bit.
So will you come back and feed these, or are you not feeding them?
It's a possibility. They look like they could use some feed. There's, I don't know, 60 some hives here, so it probably could use some feed. I put a gallon in them whenever I put the queens in, but they burn up resources pretty fast, so. Yep, there's a queen. That's a virgin. I'm pretty sure she isn't. Let's look at this frame. Got some chill brood on there. There's some eggs in there. But yeah, they need some feed. Feed would help.
There she is. Up top.
Little tiger strap mama. So do you guys run frame feeders, or you run?
Yeah, we do frame feeders. We do
frame
a
feeder?
little bit of bucket, but not a lot.
I thought about buckets, but then I've got to figure, then you got to figure out, or figure you got to store them, and then dealing with, coons and possums.
Yeah.
And we live where I'm located at. We're on a giant reservoir, so literally 200 yards that way is conservation Corps of Engineer land. So it's basically just wild land. So I mean, there is tons and tons of wildlife, and I sometimes will have, when I was making them in nuke boxes, I would have coons that would pull the lids off the nukes.
Oh, really?
So I just pretty much decided I wasn't going to do buckets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we
Ziploc.
also did Ziplocs.
I've used that on some nukes
Yeah, we do
before.
it on our nukes mostly.
On nukes in Missouri, when I used to make them in nuke boxes, I had some that, it was cold, rainy, and this, that, and the other, and they were running low on stores. So I was like, I'll try the Ziploc method. So I made up some Ziploc, and on those Pro nukes, you can put them underneath the lid,
Yeah.
and it worked good.
That's
So these were the parent colonies.
So these came from
These
the almond.
have been to California,
Okay.
come back, and actually some of these have had 2 splits taken off of them. Most of them have had 1. So
So you have some of those plastic frames. What do you think about those?
I love them.
You do?
Yeah. I mean, you'll get some wonky stuff every once in a while, but I don't have to put them together.
Yeah.
But I mean, eggs, larvae, look at all that pollen. I don't need to go through these. I'll probably start pulling these out and putting them in honey production yards and putting honey supers on them. And I'll leave some in each yard that I can still have some resources brewed and stuff to make more splits, and just reduce the number in the yard. So.
All right, so we're gonna do some grafting, do a little bit of a competition.